have to continue to have that be the world currency. If we lost the dollar as the world currency, I think that would be the equivalent of losing a war. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. I'll say to him, you don't honor the dollar as your world currency. Is that right? You're not going to do it? No, we're not. I said, that's okay. I'm going to put tariffs all over your product. And they're going to say, sir, we'd love to honor the dollar as the world currency.
I mean, like, listen to that. Yes, I want the dollar to be the world currency. What the dollar's worth, 83 cents nowadays? People are actually moving away from using U.S. currency. As if we have someone running for president and they know what the issue that most Americans facing. To me, that's no small potatoes. That's right in the ballpark of what I want from a presidential candidate. Welcome back to Quality TV. I'm your host, Qua. Quality TV is the channel that you're on right now. And in today's video, I want to talk about Donald Trump's plans for the economy. And in my opinion, I really like what he was saying, and I want to share it with you guys. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
I said at the top, a soft, soggy, pretty unimpressive jobs report today. Question is, are we at the front end of a recession? Not in it, but the front end of it. Joining us now, Steve Forbes, Forbes Media Chairman, Editor-in-Chief. Book, Inflation, Inflation.
What it is, why it's bad, and how to fix it.
All right, don't want to lose that. Don't ever want to lose that from Steve Forbes. And Scott Bessent, founder of Key Square Group down in, I guess he's in Charleston, South Carolina, and is going to try to keep the electricity on this time. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. That was a joke, Scott. It's okay. I'll go with you. You're the furthest. You're the
people moving here.
What'd you say? Go ahead. What'd you say?
No, I said too many people moving here. They're all fleeing the Northeast.
I know. That's because, okay, drill, baby, drill. Scott, soft and soggy jobs number. And actually, if you take out the revisions and you just look at the private sector, you only had about 50,000 some odd jobs, which is may not be a recession, but it looks close to one. How do you read that story?
Well, Larry, I've been saying that I think the non-government adjacent private sector and the bottom 50% of American consumers have been in a recession for 2 years. You know, when you see we've spent
Total agreement. I personally feel like I've been in a recession for the last 3 years, honestly.
7% of GDP, and we're getting a measly 250,000 private sector jobs in a year. That's a recession. You know, we got 7% deficit to GDP. The government's creating all the jobs. You know, 7% deficit to GDP. I could make Zimbabwe great again. I mean,
It'd be a challenge, but you could do it, Scott, because you're a very talented fellow. Zimbabwe would be very hard. Steve Forbes, we won't talk so much about Zimbabwe, but front end of a recession, what's your quick take on that?
It's actually a walking pneumonia.
Ah.
And I don't care what the economic theologians call it. Scott's exactly right. Over half the country feels they're in a recession. As we've discussed before, and you first brought this up, if you put an interest cost in the cost of living, people are really suffering.
You know what? Just on that, I want to digress for a minute. It's such an important.
We're paying interest on our cost of living. Insane. That's a recipe for disaster. I can't pay my bills already as it is. So if you're going to charge me interest just to live out here, it's even worse. And then you're going to charge people taxes on unrealized capital. Like, come on, we paying interest on money that we barely have, and we're also going to be taxed on money that we're supposed to make in the future. Recipe for disaster.
Point. And we've kicked it around. Michael Boskin is a very smart guy, okay, Republican economist and so forth, headed up the Boskin Commission to redo the price indexes, including the CPI. He took a lot of the borrowing costs out. Now, some people say he did that so the Social Security funds wouldn't have to keep paying up because the CPI would have been several points higher. Think about that. I mean, you know, some conspiracies are actually true.
Well, as they used to say in the Soviet Union, there are no coincidences, comrade. and so that's why Summers pointed out, former Treasury Secretary under Clinton, pointed out that if you put in borrowing costs, the height of inflation a couple of years ago wasn't 9%, was 18%.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the rate today is about 6 or 7%.
That's right.
I did see that it was around 19% somewhere. But lately, the 19% has disappeared, and most people are talking about the current rate, which is around 8.9. It was between 18, 19 at its highest during the Biden administration.
That's what the reported numbers are.
And, you know, Scott Besson, that's what President Trump's been saying. I mean, the cumulative 20% increase in the level of prices
20%.
since 2020, and, of course, individual prices up much more than that. But Mr. Trump's point is inflation is still here. I say it has a long tail. Now, Scott, you were sitting right in front of me, right next to him giving the speech yesterday. He argued that his program, and we're going to have some quotes on the dollar in a minute, that his program of tax cuts and deregulations and so-called smart tariffs and energy reform would be pro-growth without inflation, Scott Besson. And I know you've been advising Mr. Trump. Were you convinced? Do you think he convinced that Wall Street audience?
I think he did. I thought he was remarkably conversant. He showed his knowledge of economics, the economy, and finance. He showed that he's a private sector person. Neither Vice President Harris nor Governor Walz has had a job in the private sector in their adult lives. President Trump was supposed to speak for 30 minutes. He spoke for an hour and 15. He took questions from two Republicans, two Democrats, unscripted. I don't think the president of the Economic Club of New York said that Vice President Harris has been invited. I don't think she's economically literate enough to be able to give a performance like this, much less risk answering questions from the other side of the aisle. I thought he did a magnificent job with his 8 points of laying out his vision. And Larry, it reminded me of back to his, and nobody would know this better than you, back to his 2016 style of identifying the problem, but then coming out with an optimistic solution that he was going to provide.
Yes.
That's easy. That's what everybody should do. You identify the problem and then you work on solutions. The plans that the opponent is putting forth, that's not identifying the problem. That's only throwing money at the problem, which is going to make the problem worse. We have to fix it and not just throw money at it. I mean, that's for temporary relief, but once it's time to pay that money back, there's no more relief. We're paying an interest on the cost of living.
No, it was really aspirational. You're exactly right. I mean, I call it renewal, but it was really aspirational and very optimistic. Now, I have a special treat from my dear friend Steve Forbes. Let's roll some tape. Mr. Trump talking about the dollar.
We have to continue to have that be the world currency. If we lost the dollar as the world currency, I think that would be the equivalent of losing a war. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. I'll say to him, you don't honor the dollar as your world currency. Is that right? You're not going to do it? No, we're not. I said, that's okay. I'm going to put tariffs all over your product. And they're going to say, sir, we'd love to honor the dollar as the world currency.
God love that. Steve Forbes.
I mean, like, listen to that. Yes, I want the dollar to be the world currency, and we have somebody who's putting the dollar first. What the dollar's worth, 83 cents nowadays? People are actually moving away from using U.S. currency as the primary currency of the world. If we have a president or someone running for president, and they're speaking to the American people, they know what the issue that most Americans facing. We have to get down to the root cause of it, and making the dollar the primary currency of the world again. To me, that's no small potatoes. That's right in the ballpark of what I want from a presidential candidate, and it's beautiful to me. I love to hear things like this. I'm 100% on the Trump train if he keeps doing what he's doing.
That is right out of your playbook. In fact, I think you may have written that for him.
Real talk.
There are no patents in politics.
But really, I mean, he has a very strong position on growth in this speech and a really strong position on the dollar.
Well, he's the only one who I think gets that the Federal Reserve is making a mistake by thinking you get rid of inflation by trashing the economy. You do it by having a stable value for the dollar, something that's trustworthy today, tomorrow, and in the future. We once had that status. And if you have a dollar that is
A stable value for the dollar, not just throwing more dollars at the problem. Come on, let's get it together, people. I hope that we can get it together. I really do.
trusted again, stable in value, which the Federal Reserve never mentions the value of the dollar or other currencies.
Ever. In any of their notes, in any of their forecasts, you're completely, ever. It's just like it doesn't exist.
And when we have
Quick side note, I thought this guy had on glasses the whole time. I just thought that was odd. I'm sorry. Let me get back to the video.
a stable dollar in the 50s and 60s, guess what happened? We had the greatest period of growth prosperity in the 20th century.
You know, Scott Bessent, we're running out of time, and you're probably running out of electricity down there in Charleston. But I want to echo Steve Forbes' thought. Indeed, I wrote a book on the subject. JFK's tax cuts were accompanied by a dollar as good as gold. He insisted on that. His Treasury man, Douglas Dillon, who authored the tax cuts, kept the dollar as good as gold. And we had 6% growth nearly and no inflation, Scott. Give you the last word. Because you know what? Sometimes, like yesterday, Mr. Trump sounds like JFK, the best part of it, and Ronald Reagan rolled up into one.
Yep.
I agree 100%. 100%. Trump is, to me, best president candidate we've ever had. Ever. That's just how I feel. And I don't think there's anyone out there that should be president right now outside of Donald Trump. But everybody doesn't agree with that. But if you're an American, you put America first. You feel what I'm feeling. You know exactly what I'm getting on. You know exactly what I'm putting down. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
In a conversation with Art Laffer, I once asked him, Art, why do you think the dollar was so strong in the 1980s? And he said, Scott, it's simple. We increased the after-tax return for private enterprise in the U.S., and the economy took off, and everybody in the world wanted a part of that. And if Donald Trump delivers on what he talked about yesterday, everybody in the world will want a part of that. You can't get it in Europe. You can't get it in China. Certainly can't get it anywhere else.
We will win the global race for capital and the global race for growth. The USA will win that. Trump has the right agenda.
And save the free world. When America gets it right, the rest of the world will get it right.
That's right.
Just we did in the 80s.
Exactly. When we get it right, everybody gets it right. We're the leader of the free world, and we need somebody strong enough to actually run this country and have us moving back in the direction that we should be. We should be the leader of the free world. I don't care what nobody says. I'm American, born and raised here. I love my country. I'm a patriot. This is the type of stuff I like to hear from my country. Black, white, yellow, brown, whatever. We should all feel this way. The economy, should be the top priority for anybody who's looking to cast a vote. But some people, I get it. You vote your interests. But if our economy is trash, all your other interests, they kind of don't matter, because one, we're not going to have money to pay for things. Two, we're gonna be starving out here. And three, nobody's gonna respect us. Let's make America great again. It sounds so cliche, but that's my time for the day. If you guys made it this far, please drop a comment in the section. That's how I feel about Trump's economic plan. I want you to tell me how you feel down in the comment sections below. If you feel like he's right, if you feel like Kamala can do better, just let me know down in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share the video if you feel like there was some information that you gained, something that you didn't know prior to watching my videos. It would be greatly appreciated. But until next time, peace, love, and fish grease. See you guys on the next video.